So we've gotten our images onto our magazine cover. We've started playing with text, adding it on, arranging if we decide we wanted to use text wrap or if we want to just manually adjust our text. That's totally up to you depending on what the look of your magazine cover will be. And you just had to make sure you had your title, your 5 subtitles, the image of yourself. You paid attention to the font choices that you were going to use, making sure that those are working with the overall look, because something that's more blocky might feel more sportsy versus something that's a little more cursive-y or scripty might feel a little more feminine or elegant, things like that. So it's just working with the fonts that work for you. The reason that I would pick some of these fonts is because it's a toddler, it's a 3-year-old. They're silly, they're fun, they're not necessarily a very big blocky font or anything like that. However, you want to make sure that you can still read everything. So a couple things that we haven't hit too much. Don't forget the hyphenation with the text. You have to have the text tool, the type tool selected, have the type selected, paragraph up in the top left. Make sure it's not checked, uncheck it. That way you don't have a hyphenation in the middle of a word. And then you might need to apply that to every text box, because if you don't, then you could end up resizing and having something go bad. The other thing that you want to make sure of is that you do have the colors. There are actually effects that you can play with in InDesign, and that's something I'm going to show you real quick, and it's this little FX or effects, as well as you can get to it from the going window and choosing effects. And this is where if you click on this drop down, you can do a drop shadow. You see it really, with the preview on, it really popped it off the page. You can change the distance. You want to make sure whatever you're using works for your design, and make sure that it's really readable. Having an overlay, a feather that goes in a certain direction. I mean, all of these different effects are totally usable. It's up to you if you want to use them or not. It's not a requirement. However, it will give your overall design a whole different look, because it's going to allow you to really have it feel dimensional instead of just being a flat layer. So like that would make it pop off the screen a little more with a yellow behind the green. Don't forget to look at your color wheel. Look at the colors that are contrasting colors. That way you can use those to your advantage. That's why I chose the green over the yellow hair. The yellow and the green are contrasting colors, so they pop up against each other. The last big thing that I want to make sure you guys see is doing the background. So every time I've brought this image in, it has no background. That's because on the artboard I made sure to move the background in Illustrator. So you have to make sure that you have the different images on different artboards, so that way you can put your background as a separate layer. I will be checking this to make sure that you do that, because you can see I do have layers. I didn't really do any craziness in the actual organization of these layers. However, I'll be coming around after I grade the Edmodo turn-in to make sure that you have it properly. So when you're in Illustrator and you have your file open, and I've done a lot of work since last time we worked with it in Illustrator, as you can see. So here we go. Liam, oop, that's not it. Here we go, that's the right one. So the easiest way to make sure for your Illustrator save my computer eventually loads, is to have those multiple artboards where you can have the two different pieces be separate. So not like this. If you place in the Illustrator document like this, if I was to save it right now, go back to InDesign, and if you go to our links, Liam Trace should, yep, I did. Oh, I didn't save it. It's still saving. Once it saves in InDesign, it's going to show me that the link is broken. And some of you guys have already figured out how to relink it. Besides the first time we looked at it, you've edited your image. You've made it better, and you've updated it in InDesign to make sure everything was there. But back over here now, it shows that it has an issue, so double click it. When I do that, and it updates it eventually, because you know my computer's faster than yours, but it's still not fast by any means. Here it goes. Then I will have that background, and the only trick that you need to do is to have the layers being different. Now, the reason that just happened is I set the clipping mask, and it still is on, even though it didn't look like it was on, and I have it turned off for other purposes. I go to none, there we go. So what you need to do in order to get your credit for this project, for the InDesign piece, because if you've already done all this in Illustrator, you're good there. But in order to get the credit for this project, you need to make sure you have these on separate artboards. You need to make sure that the piece that you place into, and I just hit Control S to save, the piece that you place into InDesign only has the tracing of you, does not have that background, and then you're going to create a background separately in InDesign, and it can be similar to what you created in Illustrator. It can be something totally different, because you got to remember, you have text on this. Having all these crazy colors that I created in Illustrator does not work so well for the background at this point. Now we can update our link. So I'm going to show you just a real quick and easy gradient background, which again, I'm not requiring beyond that. If you decide to go crazy and create something in Photoshop or put an image that you have the rights to in there, you're welcome to, but I'm not requiring that. I'm requiring just a nice background. So you have to choose the shape tool. I'm choosing rectangle tool. I am drawing a rectangle that fits the size of my paper, and I am going to go to the gradient tool. Go ahead and pick, I'll just go with red for now. With the gradient tool, oopsie, you need to make sure if you double click it, you then get your options, and then again you need to make sure you are double clicking. Eventually you can actually change colors. I'm mixing my programs up. If you open up your swatches and drop a swatch, then you can actually get the color in there, pull the other ones out. As you guys can see, it just always gets really entertaining when you do multiple programs. So there's that. I'm gonna flip it to radial just because I like things going out and around. So the other thing you need to do is make sure you go back to your move selection tool, right click, and then on arrange, just send to back, because you want it behind everything else. Because I have some different settings from text wraps still set on these, I need to go back and fix that, and once I fix that, it should end up working out much better here, because it thinks that it needs to hide things. So you just have to fix those, turn all the text wraps off, make sure the document pieces are proper, and I'm going to have to play with those on mine. The biggest trick, like I'm saying here guys, is make sure text wrap is off with everything, and then you should be okay. And if it gives you any issue, let me know so I can then help you out. to fix it so it doesn't look like where mine is headed. Alright, so at this point, make sure that you're working to get your portrait placed in. Make sure that you're working to get your background done. If this gives you an issue, let me know so I can help you get all of those pieces, parts done, and make sure that it doesn't actually cause an issue with text wrap. The final step when you are done is to export as a JPEG, and that is File, Export. Make sure you change it to JPEG, and make sure that you save it as your name, magazine layout. Alright guys, you're good. I'd say low for Edmodo, and then you can be good and turn it in. Have some fun, and I can't wait to see what all of the portraits look like.